What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a quick video about the fourth episode of House of the Dragon, which again, a little bit delayed, but I want to quickly talk about it before we go into episode 5 today. Episode 4, I quite liked it, so I've been thinking about it throughout the week. I did, again, my 2 discussion videos with Jake, one on his channel, one on my channel, so check those out for a longer discussion on those. And I mentioned in those that I wasn't sure how I would rank this among the others. So what I've settled on for now is basically, I think episode 3 is my favorite, then episode 1, then episode 4, and then episode 2. And the reason for that is that with episode 4, they made some decisions, especially related to um, Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Kristen, that I think we'll need to see how they pay off down the line to see if those decisions were good and if it was worth doing them that way. But I think overall this episode was good again. I didn't have a lot of major complaints. So yeah, we start off with Rhaenyra, who is on her tour to find a new husband or to find a husband, and we see her probably at Storm's End, and she is hearing a lot of like lords coming to ask for her hand, basically. And we can already see she isn't super happy about this tour, and she isn't really taking it seriously, it seems like. And it feels like she is being quite rude, which again, I mentioned this last week, where Rhaenyra does not seem like she understands that she needs to rally support for her claim with all these lords, like when she's meeting them at the Royal Hunt, and now as well, like she doesn't understand that she needs these people to support her when she wants to become queen. So I think this is already setting up to that something that will bite her in the ass later on. So yeah, we see her hear 2 claims, I think, one by Lord Dondarrion and one by Lord Blackwood, and yeah, she doesn't take either of them seriously, really. So she leaves. She breaks up her, or she stops her tour 2 months early, which means that she had a lot of other places she had to go that have probably set up a lot of things for her, but she just decided that she's not going. So now, I guess those people will all not be quite happy with her. So that's an interesting thing. And then we see her sail back to King's Landing, and on her way she sees that Daemon is back. Obviously last we saw Daemon, he was in the Stepstones and just beat the crab feeder, and now he's back in King's Landing, and we see him return and lay his crown at Viserys' feet and bend the knee, basically, and proclaim that the Stepstones belong to Viserys now. So that's an interesting development. Obviously, it's taken from the book. I think this scene was quite good. I liked it. I really liked how it was played. I didn't think it was quite as epic as the version in the book, where he actually comes back during a tourney, and he flies over the tourney grounds 3 times and then lands on the tourney ground. And then there is this really cool artwork where he's basically kneeling in front of Viserys and offering up his crown. I think I had that mental image because I had read the book, so it wasn't quite as cool as that, but I think the way they played it was still logical and made sense. And then we move into basically Daemon catching up with Viserys and Rhaenyra and Alicent, and I think that was a nice moment. I think it's nice to see Daemon and Viserys actually get along for a bit, because obviously later in this episode that goes all goes south again. So yeah, that was a nice moment, and we see actually Rhaenyra and Daemon have an interesting talk where we learn that Rhaenyra is actually afraid of getting married because she doesn't want to get pregnant, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, her mother died in childbirth, so yeah, I think that's an interesting direction to go. But obviously, that leads us down a line that gets a bit weird with Daemon down later on in this episode, because basically the idea now is that with Corlys still not back in the fold, it seems like the small council would like Rhaenyra to marry Laenor, and actually Rhaenyra has now a seat on the small council, but she obviously, this marriage is still a political tool for the small council to kind of get Corlys back into the fold. And yeah, this is something that we see that, like, Rhaenyra, even though she technically has her choice, Viserys promised her that she can choose, although he's also very mad that she stopped this tour. Um, yeah, still the political element of this marriage is still on the table, and we see after that that she goes out to Flea Bottom with Daemon. And this whole scene, it was interesting. I really liked seeing Flea Bottom. I liked the theater play we saw where it shows that the small folk aren't actually super in support of Rhaenyra, and they're actually more in support of Aegon. And I think that once again we see Rhaenyra when she's confronted with that she says the wants of the small folk are of no consequence. I think this is already a pretty damning thing to say, because it already shows that she isn't really taking this as seriously as she maybe should. That basically these are the people she's going to rule over. Like if she doesn't have their support, like at some point it's just going to, yeah, it's going to reach a boiling point where even if she is the queen, that maybe this won't work out. So I think the fact that she says that their bonds are of no consequence, I think that's quite damning. So yeah, I think she's obviously frustrated in this position, in this at this moment. So I don't want to read too much into that, but I think it's certainly an interesting setup that we need to see how that develops down the line. And obviously Rhaenyra in this whole episode doesn't come across very well, in my opinion. Yeah, because we see her let herself get seduced by Damon, and that was a weird scene to watch. Yeah, I think yeah, the whole thing, I'm still not sure whether this was all Damon's plan, to try to seduce Rhaenyra and then to ask Viserys to let him marry her. But it does seem like this, because when they go to that pleasure house, it seems like Damon pulls off the hood off of his own hair and the hood off of Rhaenyra's hair. So it seems like he wants him to be seen, and obviously word gets back to the Red Keep that something happened with Damon and Rhaenyra. And I think that whole thing obviously starts a big rumor that now Viserys has to deal with, and obviously rumors like these are hard to keep under wraps. So yeah, Viserys rightfully is quite worried about what happened and whether he needs to do something. And yeah, what he doesn't know is actually that technically nothing happened. Like, obviously something happened, but like Daemon left before anything major could happen. But Rhaenyra decided to go to Kristen Cole instead. Yeah, the Kristen Cole scene I thought was interesting. Obviously, with the Kristen scene, there has been a lot of discourse online. My personal read on it is that the power imbalance does make it problematic. Although I do think that there was some kind of consent in there at the end, because I do feel that Kristen was damned either way. Like, I think it's hard to argue that his duty is actually to follow what Rhaenyra says in this moment, because his duty is actually to protect Rhaenyra. So Rhaenyra is actually putting herself in a very bad position by trying to sleep with Kristen. So I think that's something that I don't think. Yeah, I think technically you could maybe make the argument that Kristen should actually be advising her not to do it. So I think it's hard to say, because either way, like, if Kristen does it, he's putting his life on the line, and if he doesn't do it, he's also putting his life on the line if Rhaenyra gets mad. So I think it's hard to say, like, with the whole power imbalance, like, which decision is actually the worst one for Kristen. So yeah, I don't know what my read on it is. I want to see how Kristen reacts to this and how their relationship develops in the next scene. That's one of the things that I mean, that with the Daemon Rhaenyra and the Kristen Rhaenyra relationships, we really need to see how they play it over time, to really see what exactly the characters feel about it. So I don't want to make a judgment right now whether yeah, how problematic this scene was. So I want to see what happens in the next few episodes. But my read currently is that yes, it is problematic due to the power imbalance, but I do not think that it was completely non-consensual, because I do feel like the way it was shot, it seemed more that Kristen was fighting, or actually his inner conflict was more about his vows rather than Rhaenyra forcing him into a bad situation. That's just my read on it. And then we move on into Rhaenyra trying to let people know that nothing happened. And yeah, it's interesting because everybody thinks that she slept with Daemon, but nobody knows that she actually slept with Kristen. So yeah, it's interesting. I really like the conversation with Rhaenyra and Alicent in the Godswood, because yeah, it really shows Rhaenyra in panic mode, where you can see, like, she in quick succession she calls, when she's talking with Alicent, she's like, Alicent, your Grace sister. Like, you can see, like, the way it's played, her facial expressions, the way she's speaking, and yeah, it's clear that she's in panic mode. And yeah, when she swore on her mother's memory, like, I lost a lot of respect for the character in that moment, because I was like, I know that she technically, you can argue she didn't lie, but like, I do think she lied, and all obviously her intent was to lie in that position. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed in Rhaenyra in that, but yeah, that's just, I think, good writing at that point. So yeah, I think it's interesting, because obviously Rhaenyra said one thing, but Alicent thought it meant a different thing, and that's what she brings to Viserys. That basically what Alicent understood is that Rhaenyra is still a maiden, although what Rhaenyra said is that Daemon never touched me. So yeah, it's an interesting way to play it. Um, yeah, and all this builds up to is that we get this Rhaenyra and Viserys scene, or actually before that we get the Viserys and Daemon scene where Daemon asks for Rhaenyra's hand, and Viserys once again exiles him. I think that scene again was very nice. It was a nice juxtaposition with the earlier scene in the throne room. We see Daemon, who came back with a crown, in full armor at the start of the episode, and now he's carried into it and like laying on the ground of the throne room. So I think that's an interesting juxtaposition. And obviously, Viserys tells him to leave, but we'll see what happens with him now. Yeah, so and then we get the aforementioned Rhaenyra Viserys conversation where Viserys once again reminds her of her duty, the fact that she's the heir, and the fact that she has this knowledge of this prophecy of the prince that was promised. He reminds her that, hey, this isn't just about you, this isn't about your desires, this is about something way, way bigger. So I think we can, once again, Viserys is trying to really revive that sense of duty in Rhaenyra, and they basically make a deal that Rhaenyra will marry Laenor. So she's giving up her own choice of husband, but is ready to make a political arrangement. And it seems like basically Daemon showing her that she can, even if she's married, basically do whatever she wants. It seems like she's okay now with getting married for a political reason, if she can basically do whatever she wants anyway. And in return, Rhaenyra asks for Otto to be removed as hand because Otto is obviously supporting Aegon's claim. Yeah, so this is interesting because I think Otto in this episode, actually, he wasn't doing anything that was wrong. Yeah, obviously he is supporting Aegon, we know that. But in this episode, it didn't feel to me like he was happy about bringing this information to Viserys. It did seem like he was conflicted about whether he wants to tell Viserys or how to tell Viserys. So I do think it's kind of ironic. Like we talked about it with Jake in our discussions, that like it's quite ironic that like Otto is dismissed as hand, but for not the reason that he maybe should have been dismissed for. So it's interesting. Obviously, Otto. Yeah, we'll see what he does now that he isn't in his position of power anymore. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how that unfolds. And then at the end of the episode, we get that shot with the moon tea that Viserys apparently sent to Rhaenyra, which is obviously a way to, as as Maester Mellos puts it, do away with any unwanted consequences. So basically, it's an abortion tea that Viserys, maybe, like if we believe Mellos, Viserys wants Rhaenyra to drink this. So it's interesting. It puts Rhaenyra in a position where she either drinks it and basically confirms that she isn't a maiden anymore, or she doesn't drink it and risks getting pregnant. So I think that's an interesting setup that we'll see how that plays into the future. Will she drink it? Will she not drink it? I'm not sure if we'll ever actually find out. But yeah, it's something that has an interesting setup for the next few episodes. And overall, I gave this episode a 9 out of 10. I think it's pretty good. I think it was a bit of a slower episode, more of a character building episode. I think what they're doing with Rhaenyra is really, really interesting because she isn't just a goody two shoes. We did see her like in a very likable way, in likable light in the first two episodes, but in the last two episodes we're seeing a more gray aspect of her, seeing that she's not as morally good as maybe first thought. So it's interesting how they're developing that. I really like how they're developing Alicent and Rhaenyra's relationship. I like basically I like everything they're doing. Just in this episode they did some, I don't want to say controversial, but some interesting stuff that might be seen as controversial. So I think it will be interesting how they deal with that down the line. Yeah, there were other things in this episode as well. That obviously the Alicent Viserys thing that was very hard to watch. Yeah, so I think there were a lot of good things in this episode, but overall I was a bit conflicted at the end. I do think I easily like this more than episode 2, but I do think I like episode 1 and episode 3 slightly more than this. But this episode has me hyped for the next episode, so it did its job. I think episode 5 will be the last one with these young actors playing Rhaenyra, Alicent, Laenor, and Laena. So I think we will get the big time jump after episode 5. So episode 5, I think from all the previews that I've seen, it looks like it's kind of like a mini season finale. So I'm super hyped for that, and I'm looking forward to see where this season goes. So yeah, that's all from my side. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, leave a subscribe, and check out my discussions with Jake. Check out basically the House of the Dragon playlist where I have all of these videos in order. So yeah, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.